DJI have just released a new firmware update for the Mini 3 Pro, and it is a large update. But even with that, in this video, I'm going to explain why I think the Mini 3 Pro, this is the end of the line. So the version number is 01.03.0700, and it's a large update of around 896 megabytes, which is a really significant size. It doesn't change the DJI Fly update. This is still version 1.11.4. This is available right now for the Mini 3 Pro with the DJI RC. So when we get such a big update size like that as a firmware update, surely this is going to mean that we're going to get new features, and especially for that Mini 3 Pro, this older drone, that is fantastic news. Now the first question and the option I wanted to see first of all was to see, does this now bring the height lock in the EU for the Mini 3 Pro? We are expecting a firmware update soon, before January. Is this it? So that was the first thing I checked. So on the settings in the UK, and I was also in the EU as well, checking this really recently, that this doesn't change that height lock at all on that Mini 3 Pro. So even if you update your firmware, if you are in EU or you travel to EU in the next few weeks, nothing is going to change at all. I can still go onto that slider and adjust it up to 500 meters. Nothing has changed there. Now I have done a full video on the declassification process and how to declassify your drone. That was actually the last video I did, so go and check that out at the end of this video. But I do hope that if this comes via firmware update for the Mini 3 Pro really soon over this next few weeks, that'll actually be listed in those firmware notes where it says on here fixes minor bugs. I would hope it would then say this will limit this drone now to 120 meters. So then you guys have the choice whether to update or not. At the moment, we just don't know. So after checking all the key menus on this safety tab, the control, the camera, the transmission, and even on the main screen checking the menus, I can't see that with this firmware, anything has changed at all. Now this is really disappointing, because when we get such a massive update like this of around 900 megabytes, I was expecting, right, is this going to bring the new AR return to home feature, which we've seen on the Mini 4 Pro and the DJI Air 3, or the AR shadow when you're landing that drone? Unfortunately, no, that still isn't here. So from the looks of it, this actually does only do one thing, and this is fixes minor bugs. Now you see, a few years ago we used to get loads of bugs and issues with these firmware and flight updates. However, over the last like 6 months to a year, I haven't heard or experienced hardly any at all. So if you are still having issues with your Mini 3 Pro and the DJI RC, like it disconnecting, problems with it, then yeah, maybe this might help you. But I'd love to know what these actual bugs are. Now the DJI RC is sluggish, it's slow, it's like using a computer from 30 years ago. This isn't fast in any stretch when you compare it to say the DJI RC2. This is much faster, new processor, it's a lot better. This isn't going to fix that. This just fixes minor bugs. I don't know what they are, but if it helps you, then brilliant. That said though, it is important when you're doing any firmware updates to go and check your settings before you go off and fly your drone. Firmware updates can change the settings back to default or mess up your settings, so when you fly it in the air you're like, hang on, I didn't do that, and it's because of these firmware updates. So go and just check some of these key things now before you go off and fly. First one is on the main page, and it's the first setting you'll see. This is the obstacle avoidance. I'd keep that on bypass majority of all the time, unless you're flying through gaps or really close to objects, then turn them off. But if you're a beginner especially, or you just don't want to have any risk, keep your obstacle avoidance switched on. Make sure disabled flight is turned off, otherwise you're going to have such a miserable flying experience. Just pay more attention when flying sideways, as the Mini 3 Pro doesn't have any sideways sensors. You want to check your max altitude and distance and return to home altitude as well. Make sure that's set how you want it to, how you had it on the last flight. Especially your return to home altitude, make sure it's actually higher than that tallest object where you're going to be flying. So if you do get a disconnect on your drone, it's going to come back to you automatically. You don't want your return to home altitude to be at like 10 meters and you're flying where there's loads of trees. You want it to actually go over those trees to be able to pass any problems to come back to you. You want to scroll down onto safety to the very bottom of that page where you'll see advanced safety settings. Ensure that is set to return to home. Under camera settings, make sure it's as you like, as you actually film. So for me personally, I have it for D-Cine and I also have it as H.265. If you've got like an older computer or it's really having problems editing your footage, then use H.264. And grid lines, make sure these are switched on, at least 2 of them. I have grid lines turned on all my cameras, action cameras, drones. They're going to help so much with composition and framing, so make sure they're switched on. So just go through your settings, make sure it's all set up as you want it to, so you don't have any issues when you're out flying. But as regards to the Mini 3 Pro, I do think now that this is the end of the line in terms of new features for this drone. We saw it at the DJI Mini 2 when this drone came out, and now this drone is nearly 2 years old. I don't think we're going to see any more features. We've just had the new DJI Mini 4 Pro, which has a lot more features on this, and this is going to get even more features really soon as well. I can't wait to share them with you. We've seen the DJI Air 3, which also has a lot of the features from the Mini 4 Pro. The Mini 3 Pro, I don't think it's going to get anything else. So I know a lot of you guys would love to get more features on here. So would I, but if I'm being honest with you, I really don't think that's going to happen. So if you're holding out thinking that you're going to get cruise control or the new Active Track 360 or D-Log M color profile, even features like the AR shadow and AR return to home, I just don't think that that is going to happen. I know that might be disappointing to you, but if it's making you like hold back on upgrading to that Mini 4 Pro, then maybe if you're wanting all them features, then you should just take the plunge and get this drone. But that said though, this is still a fantastic drone. Some of my best content that I have ever created and filmed, I've captured on this drone. Sure, this doesn't have all of those extra features like cruise control, waypoints, Active Track 360, but the actual camera on here is the main thing that you're going to be using the most. So I took this drone recently along with a few others, and actually the camera quality, the video quality, just look on the screen now. You really are stretched to see any difference in video quality from the Mini 3 Pro to the Mini 4 Pro. Can you tell any difference? Especially if you're looking at this on a phone or a monitor, can you really see a significant difference? So if you just want in a drone that's small, portable, that takes really good photos and videos, this is still fantastic. Sure, it's not going to get all of the updates and firmware updates and new features. It is going to be the end of the line, but that doesn't mean it's bad. It's still fantastic. And I think at the moment it's like 20% off as well for Black Friday, so it's still fantastic. Just bear in mind that because of this whole EU debacle with the 120 meter height limit, currently this isn't restricted. But if you buy a Mini 3 Pro after January 2024, it will be restricted in the EU. So if you want to get it, I would get it pretty quick. And also for Black Friday on my website, I've got this huge sale going on that actually runs out at midnight UK time. So if you want in any LUTs, presets for any of these DJI drones, now is a fantastic time to go and check them out. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, just hit that like button. It really does help out. This Mini 3 Pro, nothing new in terms of new features, but it's not over. It's still a fantastic drone. Obviously, the big elephant in the room would be, when is this going to be restricted via firmware update in the EU? And as soon as I know that, as soon as I get a firmware update that's going to potentially do that, I'll let you guys know. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on that. A fantastic day. Go and check out my website for all this Black Friday sales. Remember, it runs out at midnight tonight, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.